everyone. How is our level of consciousness or awareness tied into how well we feel empowered? What is multi-dimensional awareness? Are there different levels of consciousness for physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual? We're going to talk about that and much, much more tonight. So in tonight's Get Off the Couch segment, I'm going to encourage you to set boundaries where you need to. Now, there's a way that you can say no and come from a spiritual stance, come from a place of love, but still say no. If someone is taking advantage of you, you can set that boundary and not allow them to do that. Sometimes I think a lot of people who are spiritual, we have such big hearts and we like to give and give and give. But if you're continually giving and people are only taking from you, then that's a relationship that you might want to examine. So this week, try to set some boundaries where you need to. All right, time for tonight's guest. Joe Weaver is a personal transformation and ascension coach, energy therapist, speaker, and worldwide facilitator of classes and courses that promote personal empowerment, transformation, realization, and ascension. Welcome, Joe.
Hello, Julie.
We're excited to have you here tonight. So, right off the bat, how do we know what level of consciousness we're in?
Well, that's a very good question. If more people would ask themselves that from time to time, I think the world would be a little different place. A lot of times what I describe are different levels of consciousness and so on, is the majority of our awakened consciousness is on autopilot. And by us becoming more aware of what levels of consciousness we are, say, allowing to flow through us, the more that we become aware of what we're essentially creating and also allowing. So the easiest way to determine, say, what level of consciousness that we are in is to observe what we are thinking, what we're feeling, what we are experiencing in our lives. That is, such as, are we experiencing something that is fearful? Is my thought or feeling based in anger or guilt? To ask ourselves questions and be the observer is the easiest way to determine what level of consciousness we are in or using at the time.
We mentioned a moment ago that so many of us are on autopilot. Why do you think that is? How come we end up in autopilot?
Well, pretty much it's the nature of 3D reality, and the way that our mental mind works is completely be living our lives outside ourself. Our projections, our focus and so on is so much focused on the outside world. What's going on with other people, what's going on with, this and that outside of ourselves. So it's almost like it's a program in a way that our consciousness really runs on, is this autopilot. It's the only way I know how to describe it. And so by us becoming more aware of what we are, say, feeling, paying attention to what we are feeling, what our bodies are feeling, what our thoughts are, and so on, we are really, what we're doing is we're taking our conscious mind off of autopilot and more onto manual mode. The more that we are the observer of ourself, the more that we're more on manual consciousness. We're stepping more into our, say, self mastery, and that also goes with empowerment.
So, if For example, if I'm a person and I have a lot of angry thoughts or I have a lot of fears, I'm really judgmental, and maybe perhaps my life reflects that. I have maybe an angry person in my life, or I'm attracting situations that make me angry or fearful, then that's a pretty low level of consciousness, correct?
Well, all anger is rooted in fear. A lot of times we're in denial of this. Most people say, they're angry, and then you say, well, you're fearful, and at the same time, most people will be in denial that their anger is based in fear. So the first thing is to take responsibility for what you are creating, what thoughts and what you are producing. We have a choice to live in fear and live in anger. Once we take responsibility for the fear and the anger, then it's easier for us to release it and also live our lives in a way that is not based in those levels of being.
So what would you say to someone out there who's watching or listening that's maybe stuck in a lot of fear, and they're like, gosh, this consciousness, this stuff's kind of new to me? What step could they take to begin to move out of that?
Well, from my experience of teaching the classes and courses that I do, and seeing the amount of people going through their own transformation of, say, stepping more into their empowerment and their own, say, inner love and inner trust, is it takes willingness. That is one of the biggest things, is for somebody to have the will to want to release the fear or the anger. Taking responsibility for what you are creating and stop blaming it on the outside world or somebody else or a scenario. So it's willingness and responsibility. Those are the first two main things that really have to come into play from what I've seen most people go through, that really, say, moves into the next level of, say, creating a life or experience that doesn't have those ways of being in it.
So if someone were to say right now, okay, I take complete responsibility for my life and everything that's in my life, and I'm willing to change, show me the way, just meaning saying to God, the universe, whatever their personal choice for that is. So that's one way that they could start that process.
Yeah, it's the first thing, that would be willingness, for them to have the will to want to step forward, to want to release their own patterns, their own programs. And then the next thing would be is to live it. So many people are used to belief systems. They live their lives by a belief system. And really living in the freedom of your, say, eternal knowledge, or, say, your own love for yourself and connection with the earth and the world, there's really no beliefs there. That's an actual experience. How that comes about is through us making the steps that actually puts us in contact with the greater whole, the greater connectiveness of one another, and also feeling the earth and the universe in greater, expanded degrees. And it's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a continuous process. that continues on and on. There's a lot of people talk about enlightenment or and all that other stuff. And enlightenment, all in itself, is becoming aware of yourself to just a greater degree, and it's not a destination. It's a continuous process of greater and greater, say, understanding and connectiveness of to more levels of our own self.
I keep asking for the Eckhart Tolle special, which is the Night of Darkness, and then to have it all figured out in one night. And for some reason, the universe hasn't delivered on that. So I can appreciate that, and I think that's really important. And did you have another thought you wanted to finish?
No, that's another thing that in this world that we're so used to living in, is that it's a world of fast food here in the United States. Fast everything. Everybody just wants everything fast. And if it's not easy, a lot of times they're looking for other people to do things for us. If it's not fast and it's not easy, then we're always looking to somebody else to take care of things for us. And for us to basically become more, say, connected to the expanded levels of our own self, nobody else can do it for us. We can have assistance, but that goes back to what I was saying before. You have to live it. You got to be it in order for you to experience it. And it takes walking one step at a time. So it's a continuous process.
Absolutely, and I love everything you've said so far about taking responsibility. It's a process. And I want to remind everyone, if you have a question for Joe, chat it in or call 919-518-9773 or Skype Computers 2K Voice. As you were talking, I would love to know what your take on victim consciousness is. Now, I was in victim consciousness, not even knee-deep, head-deep in it. And I'll never forget, my younger brother said to me, you see yourself as a victim. And that was a real turning point for me because I couldn't see that at all. And he's by no means spiritual, but that was kind of the wake-up call. And I thought about it, and I was like, wow, he's right. And so once I acknowledged it, I could start working on it. But I think a lot of us are in victim consciousness. So can you give us your thoughts on that?
Well, again, our brain in the 3D world is very polarized. It's usually only our perception has to do with mainly two views, either white, dark, on, off, and so on. But we really miss a lot of times through our perceptions the multi-dimensionality of our levels of consciousness. And there's not just one level of fear, just the same as there's not just one level of victim consciousness. It's from my experience and what I've shared with other people is that I see that there's different degrees of victim consciousness all the way up through the 8th dimensional level of our being. It's from the 8th dimensional level up above our I am presence that all the levels from that level, it has different degrees of polarity and duality. And for as long as we're in different levels of consciousness that are focused in different levels of duality, there's degrees of victim consciousness. So it's a process. The more that we are willing and also observe how we are responding to different situations, the more that we then have the choice to react in a different way or choose to respond in a different way. So that's really goes into the different levels of fear and also to different levels of victim consciousness. Um, so, again, the majority of the population, if you describe to them the different levels of victim consciousness and said, if you are reacting in this way or this way or this way, that is victim consciousness. And most people, again, would be in denial of their own reactions and how they're living. It's really amazing what our, say, mental levels of our ego consciousness really produces. The amount of denial that we live in a lot of the times is really incredible. But again, it's a choice. The more that we become aware of ourselves and how we're reacting, what energies attached to, say, our reaction, and becoming aware of how that feels in our body, and how we feel afterwards, is a good determining factor of, say, if it's based in a fear or guilt or something else.
Joe, we've got a couple questions here for you on chat I'd like to ask you. Johnny B says, I was an abused child, and now as a young adult, I walk around in anger. I'm a tough guy, but I want to be more peaceful. What can I do?
Well, it's really amazing the different scenarios and situations and experiences that we've all had growing up. And the easiest way to really come to terms with what we've experienced, again, is forgiveness. The energy of forgiveness is love without conditions. It's the same frequencies of those love frequencies that is on the same levels of gratitude. Gratitude and forgiveness are very, very powerful. So the first thing is if we're holding on to trauma or somebody else's, say, choices, and they've done these things to us in one way or another, is forgiveness is the first, say, big thing that we can do to release that energetic tie to that experience. And it sets you free. When you truly, it's not a mental projection of this forgiveness that I'm describing. It's actually really taking your time through either meditation or working with somebody else that's specialized in energy therapy or some type of life coaching that could assist you in walking you through really going in your heart, feeling and really getting focused and releasing that trauma, that experience through your heart. And once you do that, it releases you again from that trauma or from that experience. It might not be gone from your mental levels of your being, but it's not going to be affecting you energetically like it would if you continue to hold on to the anger. Again, anger, it is a very, very, and fear is a very, very low frequency of energy. And it plays out through our body. It's either physically, mentally, emotionally, and if we're holding on to these energies or patterns of energies, that's what a lot of disease and different blockages in our body come from. So, in order to create greater peace and harmony in our lives, and if it has to do with certain situations, it would be really going in deep and releasing these people with forgiveness.
I think what comes fast and easy is who we are, and what we bang our head against the wall about is not us. What do you think?
I missed the first part of your sentence there. For some reason, I lost. If
Oh,
you could
sure.
repeat
No, I'll
that.
repeat this from Sally J. I think what comes fast and easy is who we are, and what we bang our head against the wall about is not us. What do you think? So I think does that make sense?
What, bang your head against the wall.
So I think what they're saying is where we're challenged with all these things is that's not really who we are. You know, the fear and the ego stuff, that's really not who we are. That's how I interpret that. And Sally J., if you have more you want to add to make sure I'm asking the question correctly. Does that make sense?
Well, the fear and the anger and all those levels of those levels of conscious are coming from a certain level of our consciousness, which is the ego consciousness. It's the ego creates all fear, all judgment, and it is in a way the ego lives in illusion. It's living an illusion from what is actually real and infinite. When we let go of what the ego consciousness and transform it, we then experience reality in a greater, say, expanded way of more understanding and with greater intelligence of how the world works, how the universe works, and how we're connected to the universe and everything. So, yeah, going back to what she was saying is, yeah, it's not really who we are. It is, it's an illusion. Fear in itself is false energy appearing real. There's a couple different ways to say it. That also, it described fear. It's really living in illusion of who we are. The fear matrix is a program. It's just like a computer. It's just like a computer program. It's in our computer, and it's running continuously. The ego is running continuously in everyone's physical bodies, and we have the choice to use that program or not. When we release the fear matrix program from our life, our living life, and we're living more in our eternal light, which allows more of our eternal knowingness to flow through our physical levels of awakened consciousness, however you want to describe it.
Sally followed up with a comment. She said, Joe said we were focused on fast and easy and we don't want to do the work. I think what comes fast and easy is our dharma. Do you have a thought on that?
Dharma, in a way, such as...
I don't know, Sally, we need you to follow up. Because I'm not sure what dharma, I mean, I know I've heard that term before, but I don't know how dharma differs from karma. So Sally, follow up with that. And then I just have a quick question here from Gertrude, who said, what is an example of living in denial?
Living in denial, let's see. That could be a whole day's talk in itself right there. I continually catch myself living in denial, like it's a continuous process as it is. The more that we release, again, these patterns that we're holding on to, these ways of being, we are stepping more into our power with every step that we go. With each step, also, we're releasing more of our more denial, such as taking more responsibility for our creations, what we are creating in our lives. For every step and every different perception that we release, with greater responsibility of what we are creating, we're also letting go of more denial. The denial that we are eternal light beings having a physical experience, we become more aware of this, and how we are connected again to everybody and everything. And it's really incredible. It goes back to the victim consciousness also. The more that we are, continually trying to shield ourselves and separate ourselves from either groups of people or certain energies or anything within reality, that we are seeing that, we can't, I don't want to deal with this, or I want to separate myself from this. The more that we are stepping into our power, releasing more of our denial, we're basically stepping more and more and more into who we are eternally. And again, it's an incredible journey that we are on, and it's a never-ending journey that goes well beyond this our physical lives.
Now, Nikki says she has obsessive negative thoughts, and it's gotten better, but it's still bad. Do you have any thoughts for her?
Well, this time period we're currently in on Earth is a very tremendous transforming period. Ever since December, we've been going through an accelerated period of cleansing, of releasing, and we have a lot of really expanded energy being anchored on Earth right now. And what it's doing is putting pressure on us to release these patterns, these fearful patterns, or say these negative, or I don't necessarily really use the word negative very much, but say these lower frequency ways of looking at things. And this expanded energy that's now flowing on the Earth is really putting pressure on us to release these things from our consciousness. And so it's a gift in a way, even though it's not a very fun process that we are currently going through and have been going through since December. But it's also a gift, this pressure and this energy that's flowing, because it's assisting us in stepping more into our own power. The girls, the way she described it with these negative thoughts and so on, is to take control of what goes through our mind. Become the master of your thoughts. And again, that's not something that just happens overnight. It's taking one step at a time with, say, one pattern at a time. Our subconscious mind continually repeats things. It's a easy way to, again, observe what level of consciousness, say, something's coming from. If the same thing is repeated in your mind over and over and over again, you know it's coming from your subconscious mind. And a lot of these, say, patterns or negative patterns or whatever that you may view them as, that our mind is really showing us what we're holding on to. And we then have the choice to change the pattern, or say release that view and perception of whatever it is. So there's a lot of different things going on right now on the planet, and energetically, that again, people that assisting people in releasing all of these 3D programs and ways of viewing reality.
Joe, you had mentioned earlier about the eighth dimension. Could you briefly maybe talk about fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, or what we need to know? And because I know people talk about that a lot, but maybe in concrete terms, I don't know if that's possible. Because right now we're in the third dimension, correct? Right where I'm sitting now, hanging out with Amnon, talking to you, that's what I'd call third dimension, this physical form on Earth. Correct?
Well, yes. This is what we could describe as third density. I use the word density to describe the actual, let's say, our physical reality. What we are currently in, yes, is a 3D, third density world that's moving into the fourth dimension, fourth density. This has to do with the process of us releasing the old programs of separation into more conscious awareness of our oneness, our more connectedness to the earth and to the universe. And again, this is a process. We're moving into this mid fourth density up to upper fourth density over a period of time, and that's one thing. To sort of answer your question regarding eighth dimension, what I was describing there is the different levels of our consciousness. And we have, again, many, many levels of our the levels of consciousness that are attached to this physical body. I describe these, and we work on these in my workshops, and we focus on these in the 12 levels of consciousness that are attached to our physical body. Our I am presence resides in the 8th dimensional level of our levels of consciousness that are attached to our physical body. And so that's what I was referring to earlier. As far as where we are right now physically on the earth, that, as like you say, is more of a third dimensional density that's transforming into a fourth density.
Now, what you said, you mentioned on the 8th level, I am presence. What do you mean by that?
Well, the I am presence, our I am presence creates the soul that attaches to the body. The soul then creates different levels of personalities, to say, that are attached to our different levels of our consciousness, and such as the ego. The ego is something that actually is learned as we grow older. For instance, if you look at young children, babies under the age of 5 years old, you'll see that they are very free. The majority of them, they don't have any belief systems. They know their connection. That's, again, the soul that's connected to the I am presence. The I am presence, the 8 chakras, just above our heads. And so as a child, we are connected fully with our I am presence. And it's through the period of time from when we're up to about 6 or 7 years old that our mental levels of our brain, left brain, and so on, are learning patterns. It's learning from our environment, our family, our friends, or say the culture that we're living in, and it's this mental sort of like database of our left brain and so on that is really what's tied into our ego consciousness. And it's around the period of 6 or 7 years old that we instead of channeling and allowing the information coming from our I am presence, we start using more of the information that's coming from our left brain and ego consciousness around the ages of 6 or 7 years old. And for most of you that have been around young children, you'll notice that kids around the ages 6, 7, 8 years old become very, very independent. They think they know everything, and you can't reason with them. You know? And really what that is going on is the ego consciousness coming online. And so we live our life, then once this ego consciousness we're living in more and more of the ego as we grow older. And then we get a little bit older, and then we start then having urges to get back in touch with ourselves. And that's when we start maybe taking more time to meditate or becoming aware of how we're living, releasing these patterns and these fears, which then allows the voice of our I am presence to start flowing again through our levels of being. And it's not something that is you just turn off and on. It's once you allow the space for the voice of your I am presence to flow, it just flows in naturally. A lot of people hear the voice of their I am presence all the time, and some may view it as, say, the higher voice of reason. That little tiny quiet voice in the background that when you're getting ready to do something, it might be saying, well, that might not be a very good idea. So most people are in contact with their I am presence, but they don't even really know what level of consciousness it's coming from. Also, a lot of times when people say, put out a request to God, or say, or a higher level of, say, universal consciousness, or whatever you wish to call it, the I am presence a lot of times responds. And the people that say, I heard the voice of God, a lot of times it's only coming from the levels of their own being, and their own eternal beingness are really what's speaking.
We've got a question here for you, Joe, from Ace, and I don't know if this is something you can do, but Ace asks, can you lead us an example of what you do? So I don't know if there's something like a quick example, maybe you're doing workshops with people, maybe something, is that possible?
What I do you mean assist people in releasing fear?
I think Ace is just asking for an example, and Ace, clarify if you need be, but maybe just something, an example, perhaps that you do in workshops or classes, just maybe a quick, I don't know if you have a quick exercise, maybe when you're beginning a workshop or something that kind of explains as a personal transformation coach what you do.
Well, we talk about a lot of different things. Talk about beliefs, say belief, and how beliefs are created, how we create beliefs within our, say, brain and so on, and how much, and so on. And also we do a lot of meditations to assist with self-reflection. Going in, say, each meditation has a different focus of, again, releasing certain things from the different levels of a consciousness, energetic ties, different energetic patterns within our energetics. Say, for those of you to know what the chakra system is, light bodies. The also goes all the way down to reprogramming our DNA. Again, it's a lot of it's meditation and discussion, assisting people in say really talking about what they're experiencing and so on. It's sort of coming to me to describe like what a belief is, and I'll just use this quick example that I always describe. Is there was a couple hundred years ago, everybody thought the world was flat until some people got on a boat, sailed around the world, and came back and said the world is not flat, it's round. But the majority of the population of people on the ground said, well, it's written on our books and the world is flat and this is what we believe. Until some more people got on the boat, sailed around the world, and came back and said these other people were correct. The world is round and it's not flat. It's the people on the ground were then saying, well, we'll take your experience then as a belief, and so we'll say that the world is round now. The people that sailed around the world in the boat actually had the physical experience. The people on land then took their experience as a belief. And so what we do in these workshops is not creating beliefs or sharing a certain teachings or techniques. It's assisting people in releasing belief systems and the structures that we built within our being since we were born that sort of restricts our higher expanded knowingness from flowing through our physical bodies. And that's a process through greater self-realization and personal transformation. That's the reason why I use the word personal transformation. The personal transformation, ascension, and so on, it all goes hand in hand. Basically, all mean the same thing. So in the workshops, we also do things to assist people in becoming aware of their intuitive abilities. How you receive information from the different levels of your consciousness, your intuitive abilities, your mental intuitive abilities, emotional intuitive abilities, and how you sense energy. We all have these channels of energy coming in, and again, most people are conditioned to shut down these channels of how we receive information. So we do some exercises that to assist people in becoming aware of their intuitive abilities and how we channel information through these different levels of our being. That's done through different exercises. That's really can't be done right now. That's the reason why these classes and so on have to be in person. But the majority of it is for people to release fearful patterns and allow themselves to love themselves without conditions.
Ace wants to know if any of these patterns could they be from past lives?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, there's within our DNA, we hold knowledge that's carried over from all of our past lives. not just this life, but also past lives and also our genetic heritage from both of our mother and father's genetic heritage that are carried through our DNA. And so a lot of these patterns or things that we experience, it might not just be from this lifetime and might not even be from us. It could be from our genetic heritage or past incarnations that are now playing out through our current life experience for us to transform these, say, karmic traumas or these patterns of denial or whatever. It's again, all that stuff is really tied into it down all the way down through the DNA. So a little bit about DNA. There's been some research in Russia regarding DNA and how DNA actually changes with your life experience. Our DNA is crystalline and can be reprogrammed just like any type of crystal, just like quartz crystal or anything else. We can change the frequency of energy, and so again, that's proven in Russia. They've already proven that what most people, or say the traditional scientists that deal with DNA in the United States and so on, they call a large portion of our DNA junk DNA. But it's the scientists in Russia that have already confirmed and studied that it is that junk DNA that changes with our life experience. As we release these patterns and accelerate or expand our consciousness, it also changes the vibration in our physical body and within the elements within our physical body, which then changes the DNA.
Now, Joe, I had a question. Are there separate levels of consciousness? Like, from a physical perspective, I'm below the third level. I think I'm hanging out at the first dimension, if that even exists. My diet's been awful lately. But if I look at my spiritual level of consciousness, I think I'm vibing pretty high on that. Or does it not matter? Can we be at different levels of consciousness emotionally and physically? Or nope, it's a one-shot deal and wherever we are? Or do we fluctuate between levels? How does that work?
Well, see, this is one of the things. It goes back to our perception and what we're used to, how we're used to perceiving reality. Again, it's either light, dark, good, bad, right, wrong, higher, lower, or whatever. It's only usually just a duality view, continuously, one or the other. In reality, we have multiple levels of consciousness that we are using and existing all at the same time. Such as, some people have described we have a mental body, an emotional body, and a physical body. And we're even though we describe these levels of separately, they are all simultaneously working at the same time. Such as we were describing about the I am presence and the ego consciousness. Even though we may say expand beyond our and start living beyond the voice of the ego, it doesn't mean that the ego just goes away. It still is attached to our physical body, and it's a matter of us then to where we don't use it all the time, and so it doesn't mean that the ego won't every once in a while speak up and say, or try to go back in this, say, fearful pattern. It's a matter of us making the choice continuously to live by, say, an expanded way of being. And I'll give you this example that I use all the time. Is just imagine a 12-floor skyscraper. And I'm using only 12 floors to describe the 12 levels of consciousness that are attached to our physical body. But there are many more levels of consciousness beyond the 12. I'm just using 12 as an example. So in this skyscraper of a building, okay, 12 floors, our ego consciousness would be down at the bottom 3 levels of that building. Those 3 levels would also be in the physical body as the bottom 3 chakras in the physical body. And so when you were looking out the window of, say, the 2nd or 3rd floor of the building, and you're looking out and you see the grass and you see some trees and landscape and you see a mountain way off in the distance, that is pretty much your perception of the reality at the time. The main thing is that all the other levels of your consciousness and floors are still attached to the body, but we're only perceiving the reality out of the bottom 3 floors. So what we do is when through the process of us releasing these patterns or views and perceptions that are tied to the bottom 3 floors, it allows us to expand our conscious view to, say, the 5th, 6th, or 7th level of the building. Then again, we're looking out the window. We see the same landscape, the same grass, the same trees, but we might be able to see beyond those trees to see a lake that's just beyond the trees, and we might have a better view of the mountains that are over there. And the same thing continues on beyond that. We get up, we expand our awareness, allow that level of beingness to connect and flow through our being. We might be able to see even beyond the lake to another mountain range, and so on. And so my point is that all of these levels of consciousness are already attached to us. What we are doing in our the majority of the time, again, with people, from what we're used to, is only viewing life out of the bottom 3 floors of the building. And it's through our willingness of taking responsibility, releasing these patterns of fears and so on, we can expand our conscious view to have a greater view of reality. People talk about heaven on earth, and heaven is here for all that wish to live it. The new earth experience is here for all that wish to live it. But the main thing is, it doesn't just happen unless you tune into it. It's a matter of making a choice to release the patterns that are tied to the 3D world in order to have a 4th dimensional living experience.
Absolutely. I'm working on it, Joe. I keep going up the floors and coming down. My ego would say I'm getting married in 4 months. I've got a wedding dress to wear. So that's kind of where my ego's hanging out at the moment, but that's okay.
Yeah, well, it's nothing wrong with having... we can't be in denial that we are in a physical body. So it's not like we're trying to escape this body and live in the clouds somewhere. It's a matter of allowing those levels of peace and harmony and balance to flow through us while we're still dealing with all of this other, say, 3rd dimensional world stuff. It's a matter of how we live in this space.
Now, Joe, there are a couple questions I like to ask all guests. The first one is, what would you say to someone who's struggling right now? Maybe they've lost a job, they're going through divorce, just in a really tough place. What advice would you have for them?
Well, right now, it's a tremendous transforming period of time, like I said earlier. And a lot of people are experiencing changes in their relationships and also with jobs. This is a really big thing right now between the relationships and jobs. There's a reason for that. It's because our lives are aligning more with our divine purpose and also our passion. What really aligns with your passion is going to be then accelerating and changing in your life experience to align you more with that divine passion or purpose. And so we're going to be, there's a lot of that going on right now. Even though these changes are not fun all the time and they're not easy, but it is through the change greater peace, balance, and harmony will exist. And we're going to be going through, we've got a lot more changes to go through here as a collective on Earth, with the Earth and so on. But just to know that it is through the change that greater balance, peace, and harmony exists. And everything is aligning in divine order. What resonates and flows through our heart is what's going to start aligning in the world. And if it doesn't align with the heart, either we're trying to stay in a relationship because we're having fear of loss of money or a life status or something, and we're not really aligned with this relationship, or even the job. It's the same scenario. It's going to change. It's through our inner consciousness creates our outer world. And that is what we're moving into now with the fourth dimensional reality. It's greater manifestation at an accelerated rate. And if we think it, or we feel it, or whatever else, or we create it, we're going to experience it that much faster. So that sort of goes into the relationships and jobs and everything.
Now, I'm all about getting off the couch. So what one step can people take right after the show, before they go to bed, or first thing in the morning to reawaken their brilliance?
Well, I would say is to forgive yourself. Be thankful that you have a physical body to experience this reality. Even though a lot of times right now we're going through so much change, we might be saying, why in the heck am I here? And not even wanting to really be here. Say to yourself, I want to align my life with my joy and passion and harmony. And I release all that does not align with my joy and happiness. And really just feel that within your heart. And release all thoughts, release all patterns that, say, live in that denial. Everyone and all of you are eternal beings of light and love. That is what makes up everything. Even though there might be a lot of wild stuff out there, it is love without conditions. What is infinite. That is what's real. So what we're doing right now is we're releasing what's the illusion, and we're integrating more of what is real. And that is who we are eternally. So really connecting with your heart, release the denial.
Okay, now how can we tell us about any upcoming classes you have, and give us your website so I can type that in so people know where they can find out more information about you.
My website is thedivinebalance.com. And I describe myself as a personal transformation and ascension coach. I do a lot of writing on my website. I provide a lot of free information and videos. My upcoming events, I have some in Wilmington, Greensboro, and Canton, Ohio, coming up in the next month and a half. I have a 2-hour event that's called an Ascension Upgrade and Alignment. And what we do in that course is we just go through a meditation, provide some information of what's going on to assist maybe in your own transformation, with creating better balance and harmony within yourself during these changes. And also, I have a 1-day event I just created is raising your vibration. It has to do with understanding how the levels of our consciousness are tied to our physical vibration, and how that's tied into the changes now going on Earth.
Excellent. We've got the divinebalance.com, so check out Joe and all his good stuff. And Greensboro and Wilmington are in North Carolina for those of you who are our international listeners or across the U.S. that aren't familiar with those. So thanks, Joe. I learned a lot tonight, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you, everybody.
And I just want to remind all our viewers and listeners, our next Thrive class is Tuesday, May 14th. Look, get off the couch, whether it's my class or something else. This is why I do this show, for you to live the amazing life that you're meant to. But we've got Geraldine Thomas, who is a professional organizer from Hoarders, is going to be part of this Overcoming Procrastination. Also have psychologist Susan Orenstein and spiritual author Julia Rogers-Hamrick. So if you've struggled with this, I've dropped the price. Look on the events, and you can save an extra $5. It'll take you there and give you all the information. And no excuses if you can't make it on Tuesday the 14th. We record, and you have up to 7 days to watch. So get off the couch, overcome procrastination. We'll see you here next week. Bye, everyone.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. Our weekly lineup of call-in programs includes Computers 2K Now with Amnon Nissan, Sundays 9 a.m. till noon. Carrie's Psychic Cafe with Carrie Silkowski, Sundays 8 till 9 p.m. Health In with Debbie Bruck, Mondays 11 a.m. till noon. Breaking Free with Marilyn Shannon, Mondays 8 till 9 p.m. One Chic Mama with Mary Michelle, Wednesdays 4 till 5 p.m. Reawaken Your Brilliance with Julie Seibert, Wednesdays 9 till 10 p.m. And if you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it at www.nissancommunications.com. Sponsored by ThatVidBlasterGuy.com, CarolinaApparel.com, and DeltaForce.net.